Thank you for staying with us. The Independent National Electoral Commission, that's INEC, has released a list of 110 associations seeking registration as political parties ahead of the 2027 general election. The chairman of INEC, Professor Mahmoud Yakubu, made this disclosure on Wednesday during INEC's second quarterly consultative meeting with media executives held in Abuja. Among the associations are the Obedient People's Party, OPP, Advanced Democratic Alliance, ADA, Progressive Obedience Party, POP, and others. According to INEC, all 110 groups have submitted letters of intent, and their requests are currently being processed in accordance with the law and laid down guidelines. Joining us in the studio for this conversation is lawyer and political analyst Fred Nzako. Fred, good morning.
Thank you.
It's good to have you join us.
Good to be with you. Good morning.
Every election cycle, we see these persons come out to say, you know what, we want to form a political party, we want to register, and INEC gives them a go-ahead. But after that, it fizzles away. We do not necessarily hear anything about them. Is this a sign of a growing democracy? Because, of course, elections are a part of what a democracy is supposed to be about. Yes. But are these signs that we are growing, or this is just a politics, people trying to have their own pound of the flesh or eat their own share of the cake?
Well, it's good to lay some form of foundation before I answer that question. Why do people aggregate to register political parties, and why do they not continue? One, the Constitution allows for freedom of association.
Absolutely.
So, edge on that, people can come together and say, we want to form a political party, just like some people can come together and form a company, limited liability company. Then with that, recall that there was an issue sometime when INEC refused to register more political parties, and late Chief Ganifa Emi, LSAN of the blessed memory, went to court, and the matter went up to Supreme Court. The Supreme Court says that based on the provision of the Constitution under the Freedom Charter, you cannot deny people from aggregating and forming an association. So people now utilize that opportunity to form all manner of associations and then come to register as a political party. But then there is also a proviso in the Electoral Act and more in INEC guidelines that any party that does not win election, that means that party is not supported or liked by the people, and that party will be deregistered. And that was why sometime around before 2019 election, we had about 91 political parties. It was so unwieldy and so challenging. But after the 2019 election, INEC pruned it down to 18. By 2020, about 73 political parties were deregistered. Now, that is what we are running with for now. Now, people have started gathering again, to register more political parties. It is, yes, it is a sign of democratic freedom that people have, that people enjoy. Freedom to associate, freedom to register political parties, and freedom to run as a political party and to contest the election. But it's also a sign of lack of ideology in the Nigerian political space. Because if you have ideological leanings, what are we doing with 110 political parties? When we had 91, it was so terrible for us to manage. Even later it came to 24 and now 18. It is still not uhuru in management, because every political party was come on the ballot paper. And what I expected INEC to do is to raise the bar. And if it is easy to just register, some political parties are inside the portfolio of the promoters. They have no office, they have no address, they have no spread. And then you begin to call them national party. You can't be answering a national party when you are only in the portfolio of one man or two or of his cronies. That's not what's true. So what we expect INEC to do is to raise the bar so that it makes it a little, not to make it stringent, but to make it to be easy for people who are serious, but not easy for people who just want to register a political party for the sake of...
Can you expatiate on that? How can INEC go about it?
The guideline of INEC for registration of political parties should include the fact that you must have
24 states.
Not only issue of 24 states, that is there, which is two-third majority of the country, but you must have offices in those places. And they should physically inspect them. That is one. And then you must have a certain number of people that are coming together to do so. Because what we experience is that once there are few people, they claim to be the representatives of the rest. They claim to be representatives of the rest. Of course, in an executive capacity, you cannot have more than maybe 10 to 15 people. But does it mean that in a population of over 200 million people, once 10, 15 people come together, they claim to be representing the rest, and you then register them as political party? Because that what it means is that every 4 years, we now run through this route until after the next election, before you know the parties that are not liked or not even wanted, or the parties that could not even win a councillorship seat. The INEC election is conducted from presidency down to House of Assembly. So any political party that does not win a seat in any state House of Assembly, obviously should be deregistered. But then again, it gives an indication that Nigerians always want to have their own. This collectivity is lacking in our political space. We need to look at why does it happen. The easy answer you can get is that political parties do not have internal democratic tendencies.
Right.
Okay.
That is the major problem.
You know, I was going to ask you.
Yes.
I was going to ask you the question you just answered. You know, I mean, they are coming as if this thing is for free. You know, there's so many of them. 110
and 10 new ones in addition to the 18 that are already existing.
So we are going to have 128 parties. I wonder how the ballot paper will look like if all of them are registered. However, do you think the IBB solution was the best for Nigeria? He came up with two parties, and we ended up having an election that was declared the freest and fairest election we ever had. The processes to the elections were different, and after that particular election, Nigeria has not gone back to those things. Do you think the IBB solution would have been better?
I would want to agree to that fact, because IBB solution was a little to the left and a little to the right, but it failed to provide something at the center. So by way of military decree, the government decreed two parties into existence, the SDP and the NRC, and there was a little to the left, a little to the right, nothing at the center. Now, it is important that we have something at the center. And that is why even in the largest democracy of the world, America, that we have borrowed from, they have a little to the left, the Republicans, a little to the right, the Democrats, and they have other fringes, independent, about 6 or 7 of them at the middle. So, that wouldn't hurt. But for us to have a population that we said that our democracy is nascent, you know, and that refuse to grow, and then a population of over 220 million people.
Something, yes.
Yeah, then we are running with 100 and something political parties. Something is wrong with our political understanding and with our ability to come together as a people. The same thing that has made people to have over 80 requests for state creation. It is that same mentality that has made people to be making requests for National Assembly to create additional 80 states in Nigeria. When we are even asking that the 36 states that are not functioning well should be shrunk, to be collapsed to about 6 states, so that one geopolitical zone will represent a state. Call it a region, call it a zone, call it a state, call it whatever. And then we now have 6 of them. Because we already have 6 geopolitical zones, we have 6 administrative centers. It will reduce the expenditure on recurrent expenses of the government. Because part of the things we are talking about that has bedeviled the growth of Nigeria is because 60 to 70% of our budget each year goes to recurrent. And nothing is left for the capital expenses.
That's right.
No budget for research and development. All the research establishments that you have in the average hours, nobody is developing them, and so many issues that are bedeviling our development as a nation. Now, somebody will sit down in his house because he wants to be a lord of the manor and go and make a request to National Assembly to have a state carved out for him. It is that same mentality that has fueled Nigerians to ask for 110 Political parties?
New political parties.
For goodness sake, what are they? What is wrong with the existing ones that they cannot find footing in them? Yes, we have identified the fact that there's lack of internal democracy, but it is still the same people.
That's right.
If you move in there and you make it well that there's internal democracy, a little to the left, a little to the right will now work. If you have a Republican spirit, you go this side. If you have a democratic spirit, you go this side. Then there are some people who will be at the fringes, at the middle. The second largest democracy, well, if you use by the number, India, because the number of people in India are more than those in America. India, as big as they are, they have about 6 main national parties. Even though, funny enough, they have about 2,600 political parties, both registered and unregistered. 6 are our main national parties. 55 are state-based parties, which we can call regional parties. But we don't have such arrangement because they practice parliamentary system of government, unlike what we practice. In a democratic, in a federal presidential democratic system, like America that we're taking their system from, there's no basis why you'll be thinking of such humongous number of political parties in an election era. Meanwhile, our electoral process is still unfolding. It has not developed. These countries, they have adopted an electronic voting pattern. They have adopted introduction of technology in the electoral process.
Right, so
the one we adopted is still causing problem for us.
Yeah, so in all of this, if you look at the legal, I want us to look at the legal angle and challenges or hurdles that might be. You've mentioned some of them, that they should have offices, in 24 states across the nation. The issue of them registering themselves, 12 months before, the 2027 election.
Exactly, before the election.
Yes, and that of the fact that they need to have office at the national headquarters.
Yes.
But how much more of the challenge they will have, when it comes to some parties that were deregistered back in the day, and we are having some that are having similar names. Look at the Alliance for Democratic, All Democratic Alliance, and there's another coming into the fray. Could there be a challenge where we have them mirroring similar parties that have been deregistered, and the fact that they also share this, they might share the same logo or logos and names? What could be the challenge for them in this place?
Once a party is deregistered, by law, it has become extinct. And if you want to register another political party and they decide to adopt that same name, you are not tying the new entrant to the old one that has become extinct. There was an SDP in 1993. Yeah. There is a new SDP. Social Democratic Party.
Even though they say they share the same ideals.
They may share the same, they may claim to share the same ideals. They claim. Because the difference between all the political parties is between 6 and half a dozen. so don't bother about what they claim. We are talking about what they do. Yeah. How do we perceive them? How do they act? What is their modus? When somebody will tell you that even all the major political parties, that it is the same manifesto at the initial stage that carried all of them. And then when you now look at the manifestos of even the main political parties, you will not see any major difference. And that is why politicians will now keep moving from one party to another seamlessly, as if they are porting on a network. In fact, it's even easier to move from one party to another than to port on a network. It's even easier. So it is because of this lack of ideology. We want to see that happen. Let a political party come and tell us that, look, we are giving you free education, we are giving you free hospital care for the elderly and for young women, for women and children and all that, and they will mean it and they will implement it. We are cutting taxation for the poor, and then we are spreading tax network and then make sure that the poor does not pay more than the rich, we are the burden more than the rich. All those are things that, if you exert a welfare state, we are giving you this and that. We now know the difference between Party A and Party B. But the problem is that the man in Party A is looking at the Party B, and the very moment he has personal discomfort in Party A, he will run into Party B and come and claim that my people said we should move.
Let me quickly throw in some questions. I'm going to merge them together. Now, do you think that these parties, the emergence of all of these parties and proliferation of parties is going to weaken our democracy or democratic process, as the case may be, and the outcomes that we see? Because you mentioned our electoral process, that we have not been able to actually address that, and here we are seeing so many parties coming. And then is it also an opportunity for some persons to negotiate positions or something?
It is more or less opportunity for some persons to negotiate, especially with the big political parties. Because what a lot of them do is, when election time comes, they will stand up and say, we adopt so-and-so, the candidate of another party, as our own presidential candidate. So if you didn't mean to have a presidential candidate, why did you go ahead to be registered as a national party? And then the man that has been so adopted will now extend some hands of fellowship. Some shaking of hands under the table will take place. That is political corruption. So the myriad of numbers will not deepen our democracy. What will deepen our democratic establishment is the activities of election management body, the INEC. As long as INEC stands firm, because INEC has constitutional and legal authority to manage, control, and regulate political associations in the country. And that is why by that extension, by that authority given by the Constitution, INEC can now bring a guideline to say any political party that does not meet up to this particular milestone will be delisted and deregistered. So INEC is authorized to do so. But Supreme Court has also asked INEC to register them once they meet up with their criteria. Those criteria are left with INEC to determine, and that is where I stand. And the INEC should make it a little more formidable, make it a little more serious, such that if you want to register a political party and you cross INEC hurdle, then you know that you really want to be a political party. We don't have an arrangement where a party can be said a state party or regional party. No, every party is a national party, even though in actions, in operations, they may not be able to have the national spread at the end of the day. And I agree with such policy that any party that cannot win a single election, any seat, anywhere, does not intend to be a political party.
In the next cycle, they will come again with a different name and they will register them because the law says that.
That is the rigmarole. Until we stop that by legislation. Exactly. Already there is a Supreme Court order on that. So it has stayed. The only way you can sidetrack it is to stop it by legislation.
Okay. I want to ask this question. Will it be undemocratic for us to have it in the Constitution, the number of political parties Nigeria can have? And with the monetization of elections, do you think independent candidacy has a chance?
The issue of independent candidacy is one that even in advanced democracies had not worked well. Have you ever seen an independent candidate win a major election in America? So there's no need going there.
Okay.
To be honest, there's no, and realistic, there's no need going there.
There's no need going there. Are you referring to individual?
Individual, yes.
Or are you referring to
independent candidacy, individual person coming to, no, you can't win an election.
You can't.
As an individual.
It's just
what if you have deep pockets?
No matter how deep your pocket is, you can't win an election, except if you make it a regional issue. Because if we want to really look at our electoral system, we can say, they say every politics is local. And that is why the most difficult election to win is that of a councillor in Nigeria. Because the people that will vote for you are the people who know you to your roots. It is easier to win as a governor than to win as a councillor. So if you now want to make it local and regional, you can say, yes, some political parties can be regional or local parties, in which case there's no problem with that. Every party must not be national because Nigeria has a lot of diversity. In Nepal, for example, they have large number of political parties. As small as the country, they have over 100 political parties because of the diversity. Difference in culture, difference in ethnicity, and differences in philosophy and ideology. So it is working for them. So we have almost similar arrangement here. Over 250 ethnic nationalities speaking close to 280 different languages. So if we have regional or local political parties, there's nothing wrong with that. But then we now begin to ask, would it still be under INEC? Will control be under INEC or will control be under the state? Because all you see today is you have only two. INEC at the national level, which covers the entire country, and the states at the various levels where they commit electoral charade called local government election. So, but if we now want to really deepen our democratic tendencies, we must make sure that the process itself it is the process that will deepen it and not the number.
Yeah.
It is the process.
Right.
Yeah.
So 2027 is just around the corner, according to the political calendar. Yeah. So if you look at the legal weapons by the APC and the PDP, they are already planning. Even the president is saying that they are political IDPs. So whatever they like, they should go. They are planning to unseat themselves, not him. And at the end of the day, we'll see them now rushing down to the courts, to your courts, asking them, okay, we won, this is what happened and all that. So do we see the same thing playing out, looking at prognosis? I mean, looking at the prognosis that you probably would have concerning the number of parties that are coming up and the legal hurdles, the legal result that this can birth in the final analysis?
110 associations are asking for registration. I do not think that all of them will meet INEC requirements. I do not think. And you say at the end of the day that we'll know how many that will be registered, but at least I know that quite a few. Maybe if INEC makes it a bit more serious, maybe a maximum of about 6 may cross the hurdle to add to the max by my recommendation. Let it not be exceed 6. I
thought you said earlier that they should try to...
No, let it not exceed 6.
Okay.
So that they can join the existing 18. All right? Why I say 6?
Okay.
Yes, why I say 6 is because after the election, a large number of them will be registered. Now, as we move closer as we climb our democratic ladder, we will be getting closer to the ideal. And what seem to be the ideal is this process of a little to the left, a little to the right, and a few at the center. Then that will work. Then when you talk about the issue of, what is going on today? There are accusations and counter-accusations. That the party at the center is the one weakening the opposition. Yeah. But there's an adage in my place that says it's only when you get close to the river that the river can sweep you off. If you don't get close to the river cannot see your feet to drown. Yeah. So those of them who are being courted and they are moving, they have the answers to. It's not the man who is interested or the party who want them to come over. And that is now, it goes back to issue of ideology. Yes. If I am ideologically standing on this level and you are not on the same platform with me, there's no way I will join you. That is it. But because there is lack of ideology, lack of principle, everything is how selfish interest. Me, my issues, how do I take care of my political freedom? How do I get power and all that? A large number of them are not considering the interests of the people.
If I should throw in this question quickly, yes. Are there implications for this matter of lack of ideology for our democracy?
The implication is that we keep moving like the wave as we are moving today. If I ask you what's the difference between APC and PDP, there's none. There's none.
No, there is. One is ruling, the other is out of power. That's
not ideological. It's not ideology. One is in power, one is out of power. That's all.
One is progressive.
One is crying, the other one is laughing. After all, that's what they say. It will sweet them, it depend them. It will sweet us, it depend them. That is it. One is happy, one is angry. But that is not ideology. Ideologically, I expected there should be a difference. In 1979, you could see the difference between NPP and UPN and NPN and those other parties. In 1979, we had 5 main political parties, and each of the parties had different and distinct ideological leaning. The PRP said it was the party for the Talakawas under Aminu Kano. The GMPP under Goni had its own policies and program. UPN had its own policies and programs under and you could even see the result playing out. The MPN had its own program that they wanted to feed the nation. Their own focus was on agriculture. The MPP had its own program, the people. So, and that was why that era was better than what we're having today. Primarily because there's no ideology. Everybody is chasing power and the process chasing money.
Unfortunately, we do not have time, but that's a fine place to leave the conversation. It would have been good to know how we got to this point, where in 1979 we had ideology, but here we are as it is.
Well, we have a party that is saying renewed hope, and we see what they're doing.
Don't push a conversation that we do not have time for.
That's right. That's right.
Lawyer and political analyst, thank you so much for your time on the program.
Thank you.